Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to recap the latest episode of NXT, which took place in Philadelphia on August 19th. And this NXT will serve as the go-home show for Heatwave, and on paper, this card looked like anything but a go-home show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the action that took place on this episode of NXT. Clearly, NXT kind of having the same mindset that this is not your average, standard episode of NXT, as before their scheduled match, Inamura and Briggs can be seen fighting in Gorilla before their scheduled Philadelphia street fight. And this match was extremely personal. I think this is one of the better feuds in NXT right now. Neither men held back for this one. We had chairs, baseball bats, trash cans, kendo sticks, a steel gate, even some electrical tape that Briggs had tied Inamura to the ropes. You name it, this match had everything you'd expect in this kind of fight, and clearly, as we saw on Raw, very much taking advantage of the scene of this episode of NXT. This is awesome chants from the crowd as Briggs' intents were clearly malicious throughout. Inamura breaking out of that electrical tape and then arguably showing, a bit darker side of Inamura, or perhaps just kind of being in the moment, doing his best to combat everything that Briggs was throwing at him. But with this comeback from Inamura, you see a few sumo chops, a baseball swing to a capped Briggs who was wearing a trash can over his head. But all of that, and then throwing him through being thrown through a table. I believe he actually jumped off the table. All that wasn't enough. Briggs still was able to kick out. And then he gets his comeback and sends Inamura through a table for his troubles. And that is how the match ends. This was a really good match, especially for just a weekly NXT show. Absolutely, this was PLE worthy. And I'm not sure why this wasn't saved for Heatwave. Like I said, this is definitely one of the better rivalries currently going on NXT. But regardless, we get it on a go-home show, so the Heatwave card currently has 6 matches on it anyways. So perhaps just not enough room on the card. But regardless, this was a really good match, and if this was a sign of things to come for this episode of NXT, I was very much looking forward to the rest of it. So it'll be interesting to see from this match, kind of what Briggs does from here, having won that match over Inamura. Very big victory for him, and we'll see if how Inamura can rebound from that loss. We then get into the next match of the night, which features a rematch of sorts as we see Jasper Troy and Ricky Saints once again. This match wasn't near as good as their last one, and last one I believe I dubbed that one PLE worthy as well. Really good match. This one didn't feel quite as rehearsed, if you will, and one could ask, what are we doing back here? I guess. Especially with Jasper Troy taking the loss here, which I didn't really think we'd see coming. I have a hard time believing Jasper Troy will take this loss in stride and will clearly probably be out for revenge sooner rather than later. So I imagine the purpose of this match was simply to reignite, because it had been a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, since we've seen that last match with these two guys. So I imagine that's the takeaway here, is to reignite that rivalry. And speaking of rivalry, we then get the face-to-face interaction with Jordynne Grace and Blake Monroe before their match this Sunday at Heatwave. Jordynne comes down to the ring first and basically says she was dumb to think that a friendship in the wrestling industry could work or would work, and the facts do support that claim. But she points that out as well. But we, as wrestling fans, obviously very much know that is 99% of the time that does end up being the case. Friendships do not work. Blake then comes out with a few security guards. You can probably see where this is going. Monroe calls Jordynne a wannabe, but Grace quickly retorts by asking who was on the Evolution card and who was sitting on the sideline. So, although true, Blake had been around for barely a hiccup at that time. So, regardless, this segment was good enough for what it was, but definitely didn't introduce anything new and or exciting, at least in my opinion. So, of course, these security guards that Blake brought out, yeah, they get taken out by Jordan, and that is the end of the segment. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the match. But in terms of this promo, just kind of reminding us that this match was upcoming, and it's been. I feel like this one's kind of been riding on idle for a bit. Very very hot start once they broke up, and we saw that turn from. Blake, but not a lot has happened since then. So I'll be interested to see where they take this from. Obviously who comes out on top on Sunday, but then where they go from there will be interesting to see. Getting into the second half of NXT, we start off with a 6-woman tag match, which features Fatal Influence versus Heather M and Ash of the Elegance brand, making a visit over from TNA. And also seen earlier in the night, we see Masha Slamovich has convinced Ava to let her be a special guest referee for this match. This was a pretty good back and forth and pretty chaotic, honestly. That had JC Jane does end up getting the win here for Fatal Influence ahead of their match at Heatwave. So don't have a ton of experience from the Elegance brand, but they look pretty good here. And I did not realize that was formerly known as Dana Brooke on that team. So I did not realize that she was in TNA. So that was a nice surprise. And she looked good here as well. But yeah, if you believe in a go home curse, JC Jane getting the win here, what does that say for you? I guess if you believe in that, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see if that holds true on Sunday. But yeah, this was a good match, and I'm very much looking forward to. JC surprisingly didn't have much interaction with Masha. It was mostly between the TNA members. So yeah, curious to see how that plays out on Sunday. Is if JC can hold on to those 2 belts, or she finally ends up losing one. For that interim champ that she's been dubbed. She's been doing a pretty good job of holding on to them. We then get the Canadian Peace Treaty segment, which features Ethan Page and Chelsea Green coming out to, I think the intentions were to make peace with the U.S. in this instance, being Tyra and Tavion, both former U.S. Olympic gold medalists. So, yeah, if we. Well, first of all, Ethan Page and Chelsea Green both coming out to a combined entrance music theme. If you've been listening to any of our podcasts, you know that KP and I both quite enjoy these guys, and Chelsea and Ethan. So if that's a sign of this being a long-term thing, absolutely sign us up. But as for the Peace Treaty itself, if you thought this was going to go well, or peacefully, you'd probably be lying. Hence why Chelsea and Ethan had those tables removed by the Secret Service before the interactions in the ring even began. Some back and forth here that resulted in Ava coming down and announcing that these 4 would have a mixed tag team match at Heatwave. So I think that's kind of where we had hoped and thought it was going. So we are getting that match at Heatwave, and I like the idea of both of these teams going forward. I don't know if it is going to be a permanent thing or not. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But yeah, I really like the idea of both of them. Although I will say, I think Tavion and Tyra would make for much better heels. The Olympic gold medal route, as we see, we've seen Kurt Angle do. I just think it's more natural as a heel coming in and just bragging about those medals. If you'd watched LFG at all, Tyra's a very big fan of doing so, whether that's in character or not. I think it goes. It's smoother as a heel. So, but regardless, I like both these teams. I'm very much looking forward to that contest at Heatwave. Getting into the main event, which has Trick Williams going up against Javon Evans to determine who will face Oba at Heatwave for that NXT championship. Javon felt like he was on the defensive here basically as soon as the match started. He got busted up, a busted lip almost instantly. And then we see Javon get tossed from the ring ropes through the announce table. And this was a nasty spot. had a little more room to work with than normally, being in a an arena not the PC. But yeah, Javon really flew on this one. The reactions there from the announcers, Booker T, this close up that they did on him, where he's just kind of speechless, didn't know what, couldn't believe what just happened. No, that was a great sell, and this was a great spot especially for a weekly show of NXT. The commentators mentioned, and of course, this wasn't enough to take out Javon, and he does end up making that triumphant comeback to get the win over Trick, as he is distracted by the appearance of Mike Santana, who showed up in the crowd. Personally, I would have rather have Javon just get the win clean here. I know this isn't an interference, more of a distraction, but regardless, it was a good match, and definitely one of the better, if not the best one of the night. Either that or the opener with Briggs and Inamura. But yeah, Javon just makes for such a great underdog, and honestly, he's one of the best in the business right now at making those comebacks. And of course, this match was no exception. I don't think there was a bad winner here. I think you could argue we've seen both of these matchups between Oba, but yeah, Javon getting the win here, and Javon will get that opportunity to face Oba once again at Heatwave. So yeah, this was a great way to end NXT. And yeah, overall, I feel like this was a pretty good episode of NXT, especially if you're, considering this was a go-home show, comparatively speaking to that of main roster. A lot of times we see a lot of throwaway things done on those go-home shows, but NXT, in my opinion, does do it the best when it comes to these kind of shows. I will admit that the card looked better on paper than a lot of what we got. Wasn't a bad match, but you take out that beginning and ending, it wasn't anything super crazy. So, but regardless, we got a lot of nice builds for rivalries going forward, and add some last minute heat, or possibly alternative angles for our matches at Heatwave. So, which I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah, like I said, beginning and end definitely made this episode of NXT. Otherwise, I didn't feel like there's anything super groundbreaking, but excited for that mixed tag team match as well. But overall, I'd give this show of NXT an 8 out of 10. So still pretty good, especially, like I said, considering for a go-home show on any context. I think this was a successful show all in all. Well, with that, this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. If you like what we're putting out here, please let us know by commenting below or hitting that subscribe button. And of course, liking the video always helps as well. In terms of going forward, we of course have that Heatwave predictions coming up, as well as the SmackDown recap later this week. So a couple other things to look forward to. And then next week, we obviously have the last go-home shows for Clash in Paris. So a few things to look forward to there. But yeah, until then, this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you then.